Welcome to this really important event. It's wonderful that we've been able to have it here today in this beautiful hall, and the weather is so perfect because I know it can be so hot here, so it's lovely. I'd like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the land that we stand on, the Gumbanya people, and acknowledge elders past, present and emerging. And I have to apologise, I can't see everyone because I have to choose between seeing what I've written and seeing anything else. So I guess we're here basically because we are finding at the moment in our lives that we have this terrible thing called climate change. And it's no longer a myth, it's a reality in our lives. And the people of this valley have obviously experienced floods and fires. So talking today about resilience, which is recently a very overused word, is really important. And it's important to talk more about our community networks, our friends, and our ability to plan and learn from others. Communication is one of the keys, and finding out how we find out our vital news, when I've had talks to people in Dorrigo about this, is something that they're really interested in as well. A lot of people aren't on social media, so do you get your information from the newspaper, the radio, community networks, community notice boards? Those things are all very important to us, and we all need to talk about how we get our information, because I think at the moment there's a real push towards everything being on social media, and not only are a lot of people not on it, but a lot of our Telstra networks and things go down when we have fires and floods, so there has to be other ways that we can find out information about what's going on and how we can get in and out of our little pockets that we live in. Bellingen Shire Council is really pleased to get behind these important events. The Neighbourhood Centre, the Neighbourhood Care Network, has done some great work coordinating these events in other parts of the Shire. And it's wonderful also to connect with our other volunteers, the SES, the RFS, and I can even see some Red Cross people here. Please make the most of this important event today and learn from people, renew old friendships and make new connections in your neighbourhood. Thanks.
Hi everyone. I'd also like to acknowledge the Gumbanya people as the traditional custodians of this beautiful land where we meet today, and pay my respects to the elders of yesterday, today and tomorrow. As Councillor Cook has just said, resilience is a word that's been used a lot. Another term that is becoming in vogue is anti-fragility. And I think that's actually quite a good term when we think about communities and their ability to respond to adverse effects and adverse events, rather. So when you think of your own personal resilience, a lot of people think, I'm fine, I know what I've got to do, and that's fine. But community resilience or anti-fragility is much more than just even the sum of all our own personal resilience. So we know from research that's been done that for a community to be resilient, it needs to be agile. And the only way it can be agile, so it can respond in a timely manner in times of severe natural disasters or adverse weather events, is if they have well-established networks in place. And so I think today that's why coming together and sharing ideas as we are here today is so important, because building those networks prior to these events happening is the key to successful communities. It allows them to respond quickly, it allows them to access necessary external help quicker, and importantly, it allows them to recover and to return to normal in a much quicker fashion. So it's great to see you here today. I hope you all get a lot out of it. As Joe said, the other forums that have been held across different parts of the Shire have been all well attended and very useful, and a lot of good stuff's come out of it. So I'm really looking forward to sharing the conversations with you here today. It's great to be here. My apologies for being late. I can blame Roses Road, but it probably wasn't the only thing that caused that delay. But I'm glad to be here. So thanks very much, Kerry.
Thanks very much, Joe and Steve, and hi everybody. I'm Kerry Pearce. I'm the lead for the Neighbourhood Care Network project, and it's really great to welcome you all here today. I'd also particularly like to thank Tony Wright-Turner, who's the Neighbourhood Care Network Area Coordinator for Gleniffer, who's put a lot of effort into preparation for today, and Dennis from the RFS and a whole bunch of other people who we'll thank properly at the end. But this has been a real team effort, and it's just really great to see that there's a hall full of local residents who've come out on a beautiful Sunday like today to think about these sorts of things and look at what we can do together. I'm just going to quickly talk about a couple of housekeeping things and give you an outline of what's going to happen, and then give you a little bit of information about the Neighbourhood Care Network. In terms of what's going to happen today, we're going to have two presentations, one from Dennis from the Gleniffer RFS Brigade, and he'll spend 10 minutes or so presenting on some really relevant information to you as local residents, and there'll be room for a bit of discussion. And then Strider from Bellingen RFS. Did I say RFS? It's Sunday, you have to be kind to me. Bellingen SES. And similarly, he's going to do a presentation which covers really useful information with more of a focus on floods and fire. And then we're going to open up to a panel discussion, and we're really pleased to also welcome John Imrie, or Bear as most of us know him, from the Thora RFS Brigade, who's also going to join a bit of a panel discussion where we'll take questions from the floor, and that's your opportunity to ask about anything that's concerning you or that you want to look into a bit more. We're also doing a big plug for the Neighbourhood Care Network. We're really working hard to set up as many local neighbourhood groups as we can across the Shire. We've been really grateful to have some funding from the Primary Health Network for the last 12 months, but we're coming to the end of that grant. And so it's a really big push from now to the end of June to be able to support the establishment of as many local groups as we can, and Tony Wright-Turner's going to talk with us about that in a tick. The Neighbourhood Care Network came out of the collective fear of local residents such as myself and a few others on the back of the 2019 bushfires, when we all realised that if we had been hit through those fires, we would have been really in a lot of risk, and that there's no way emergency services would have had the person power to get us all out of trouble. And, you know, we all remember what the smoke was like over that period, and then just as we came up for air, even though the rest of the state was burning, the pandemic started to hit. And that understanding that as a community we would have had to have been able to respond in a really deliberate way to the risk around the fires was the same for COVID. And so a group of us were supported to work closely with Council to set up what has become the Neighbourhood Care Network. We now have 1,500 members across the Bellingen Shire and surrounding areas, and I think about 26 different groups. And I think we cover about 15%, is that correct, Ian, of the usable land across the Shire with active groups in place, and we're really hoping to build that up, but that's a pretty good start. We run the Bush Telegraph service. How many of you have received the SMS alerts that we've sent out? So that's a good half of the room, so that's great. We sent a lot of local information about COVID when it first started, before it was so easy to get. And Sue Lennox, who's one of your local residents who sent her apologies today, has kept things going on the COVID front when there's been more surges as a volunteer. We have broadened the Bush Telegraph Alert Service out to cover severe weather events and other disasters, and we're in the process of implementing, with Council's support, a Weather Watch project where we're going to be able to give information out through the Bush Telegraph about severe weather events in catchments that aren't well monitored by BOM, where that creates risk. So if you're not a member of the Neighbourhood Care Network, even if you don't want to get involved with your local neighbours to set up a little group, and we hope you do, but you can just register to get those alerts, and we would really encourage you to do that. The only other message from me at this point is that it's really important that we all take care of our social and emotional well-being when we're talking about disasters. And we're really conscious that there could be people in the room who've been impacted by really significant bushfires or floods or other major events in the past, and this could be a little bit triggering. And just also thinking about some of the information that we're about to hear, given where we all live, can be pretty confronting. And you'll see some material that our chair, Philippa Castle, who I sometimes refer to as Dr. Philippa Castle, who's a clinical psychologist, has prepared for us. And we'd really encourage you to read that leaflet and take it home, share it with your family. But Philippa's also here if anyone does want to just tap her on the shoulder and have a bit of a chat anytime through the event or afterwards. You're really welcome. You might just put your hand up so people know who you are. And she'll be at the back. So I talked about what we were going to do, so I think it's up to you now, Tony. And I don't think you'll need any introduction, but I'm... Oh, thank you. I knew there was something else. So we would love to be able to take some photos out today. If you don't want to be in photos that are shared with social media, please come up to me and I will take a photo of you, and then we will make sure you're not in a photo that's on social media. Is that an okay way to deal with it? And we also are filming this event. You can't hear? Can you hear me now? We've filmed all of our events. This is the 4th event. And the reason we film them is that we put them up on our website as a resource for other residents who can't get here today or might move to the area in the future. We're really pleased to have Ryan here filming for us at a very low bono rate, which we're really grateful for. And again, if you don't want to be in the film, please just go up to Ryan and he'll take a photo of you and we'll deal with it in the same way. So people happy with this approach? And Jane, you wanted to say something. Did everyone hear that? There's an attendance sheet, but please sign up for the Neighbourhood Care Network with the material on the seat if you haven't already. With that, Tony, I'd really like to hand over to you.
Thank you, Kerry. Is that clear enough? Yeah? Look, thank you all for coming. It is a wonderful turnout. And I don't know all of you yet, and I would love to meet you through the course of this afternoon if that's possible. I know a lot of you. When I was asked to, take on the area coordination, it was an interesting question for me because I haven't lived here that long, and there are many people who've lived here for a long time. So I knew I had a lot to learn, and I started by talking to some of the long-term residents of the Gleniffer area, and that has been a really amazing process for me. I've heard wonderful stories, and one of those wonderful long-term residents is here with us today. That's Barry, and I'd like to first off mention that he's made the model of the Gleniffer village, which is up there for us to have a look at. One thing it does really clearly show is the change that's been, in our whole area over all these years. And I think that's something to consider in, our work and planning. Through all the stories, and there were some about floods, some about landslips, some about fires, the thing that really came across to me was the importance of community, through all those times, and how much, and it happens naturally, I think, by the way the areas work here, how much as neighbours, certainly in the past, people really relied on each other. They worked together, they did things together and supported each other. And I think that's the main thing I would carry forward for what the NCN is wanting to help the community, in a sense, renew. And I don't think that they don't exist anymore. I know there are some very good networks, and I don't see the place of the NCN in trying to replace that or override it. It's actually work alongside to enhance and support communication, and developing plans like that could be one way that we could work together. So it's not an over the top or an instead of things that exist already. We've had some really good examples, and I think I'll get you to talk a little bit towards the end, where people just have the initiative at a particular time to coordinate, around their area. And that's essentially what the NCN is doing, and it's giving the community a bit of help with that. So we have some local groups formed already, because I'm big area, and it's not, that's not how the NCN works. It's as you identify your sort of local network around you. And so I'd like to introduce the local coordinators that we have here today. There's Gabby on Roses Road, and Helen on the other end of Roses Road. And we've got Philippa, who's West Somerville's, and is Jason here? No. Well, Jason he's out in Little North Arm. So you can hear that it's quite a big network that goes right from town all the way out through all the roads here, Roses Road, and along Gordonville and Somerville's, round the Loop Road, along Timboon Road. So there's room for all sorts of groups to come forward there. We've covered a couple of areas already. So I look forward to perhaps talking with people later on. We are looking for local coordinators. So if you've got a little bit of a group going and you think, that might be able to work in, we'd be really interested to hear. Or if you want to know what you could do, it'd be great to talk with you. Thank you.
Thanks, Tony. And if you want to know a bit, we might talk a bit at the end as well about what being a coordinator involves, and be great to get, usually coordinators are only responsible for a really small area that might be 10 or 20 dwellings, and usually like to have 2 people, so that load's shared. So we're talking about really small areas, and it'd be great to have that big area between the coordinators that Tony mentioned, starting to get a bit of activity there if people feel like that's a good idea.